At Wednesday's House Judiciary Committee hearing on a gun control bill aimed at curbing suicides, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal passionately defended the law from Republican attacks. The bill in question seeks to allow citizens to put their names on a voluntary no-sell list for firearms in order to prevent suicides. Republicans such as Thomas Massie and Jim Jordan had repeatedly slammed the bill as ineffective and infringing on rights. Jayapal accused her Republican colleagues of not taking the bill seriously and invoked her own mother's suicide in its defense.
If we jump in, we'll get on. We'll vote no, and you all can vote for the dead horse bill, as Massey's described. But I do think that remember, there's a provision in the legislation that designates 5 people who are on notice that this individual, who may be depressed or whatever, has submitted to putting their name on the database. Those 5 people, I think, when you look at the section of the code we're amending, they are certainly on notice that this individual has done that. If they then, as in Mr. Massey's scenario, say 10 years later, we were on that notice, nothing's changed, that individual's still on the list, but he or she is fine, and they give him a gun, they were definitely on notice because they're one of the 5 who submitted to this process. So I think there's clearly a problem there. That's why we wouldn't have been beating this horse for so long, as the chairman indicated.
And the individual, by the way, doesn't have to commit suicide for this to be a federal crime for the transfer. Doesn't have to commit.
Just has a gun.
Just takes possession.
The game warden sees him out hunting in the field and says, that's a violation right there. That's a crime right there.
Yield back some more time.
Can you yield?
Does the gentleman yield back? Okay, does anyone else seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
I'd like to yield to the gentlelady from Washington State.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to the last comment about the 5 people. The 5 people are not notified when they are put on the list. They're only notified at the point where somebody is actually sold a gun. So that is not accurate. And I just would like to say, for all the laughs and guffaws on the other side about beating dead horses, let me just say, here's an article, Katrina Brees, my mom died by suicide. If this one thing had been different, I believe she'd still be with us. This is a law that has been passed by Republican legislators in Utah, by Democrats and Republicans in Washington State. It is a good bill that saves lives. Let's return to the issue at hand.
Will the gentlelady yield?
No, I will not.
We yielded you every time you ask.
Great, well, I'm not yielding with you because we have been trying to have a real discussion here about a serious issue, and you all just want to turn it into a big joke. It's not a joke. We are willing. I've already accepted one of Mr. Massey's amendments, which is more than I can say for most of the time that we have arguments on this committee, and we offer good amendments in good faith. They are not accepted. I thought that was a good amendment. I accepted it. We have given our intention of the bill. We do not think there is a problem with this particular issue that you've raised. Let's move on. If you don't like the bill, you can vote against it, which you all are going to do anyway, unfortunately. I hope 1 or 2 of you won't. But let's address the issue at hand. Let's not turn it into a joke. We're talking about suicides. We're talking about people who commit suicide by guns. We're talking about the fact that 50% of suicides are committed by guns. We're talking about the fact that this is lethal when people use guns. We are talking about the fact that we have a proven bipartisan piece of policy that we are considering at the federal level. It is bipartisan in its introduction. I have appreciated Representative Curtis's deep consideration of this bill and his attention to the details of it. And our states have shown that it's possible. So let's get back to the question at hand.
The gentleman yield.
To the chairman.
And I yield to the chairman, yeah.
I just want to point out one thing. I'm not going to add anything to what the gentlelady just said. I think she was quite comprehensive. I just want to point out one thing. When someone attempts suicide with a knife or any other weapon other than a gun, they're unsuccessful most of the time. When someone attempts suicide with a gun, they're almost always successful. And that is why we have to take suicide by gun very seriously, as this bill does. That's why I commend the gentlelady for introducing this bill, and I yield back.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Does anybody? For what purpose does Mr. Owen seek recognition?
I strike the last word.
The gentleman's
I
recognized.
like to yield my time to Mr. Jordan.
Well, I would just say, no one's treating this as a joke. We just want to do our job. Second, every single one of us, I think on both sides of the aisle, have said how serious mental health concerns are. I can read from my opening statement. Mental health, especially as it relates to suicide, is something that we all take very seriously. So we do. We've all said that. The metaphor was not brought up by our side. It was brought up by the chairman. Last time I checked, he's a Democrat. So we all want to take this seriously. It is not a joke. You're 100% right, but we're supposed to do our job. After all, we are legislators. That's exactly what Mr. Bishop and Mr. Massey pointed out. Yield back to the gentleman. Thank him for yielding.
Does anyone else seek recognition?
Yes.